With the recent sell-off in the crypto market, we are now starting to see some very good opportunities shine, like for an example, XDC, which is still sub 10 cents, and it is sitting around almost 5.5 cents. And I've talked about it on multiple occasions on why XDC is a very bullish project right now, especially as we are transitioning into a utility-driven market, and also at the same exact time that legislation around the US is starting to get passed through. And of course, one of the biggest markets that XDC is really kind of targeting, or I should say, one of the major industries is trade finance, and trade finance is also getting pushed on chain. And XDC was one of the major front runners around trade finance inefficiencies, solving them specifically. So when we think about that, right, XDC definitely is a big opportunity in this market, in my opinion, and it always has been, yet most people actually don't really talk about XDC or even address it. Sitting at number 68 in this market at a $915 million market cap, fully diluted value $2.14 billion, I do think that the upside potential on XDC is very significant. Now, we've talked about why in the past, right? We talked about the $500 million tokenization deal with Leaky. We talked about all of the big moves happening around XDC integrations and things like that. But in this video, I actually want to go over price action, but I also want to go over a few things happening around the scene of XDC, specifically some of the events, more integrations, things like that, to really kind of outline, how bullish XDC still remains and how much noise XDC continues to even make during this time where the market is starting to sell off. Now, before I really get into price action, I do want to say that XDC does continue to get listed on some exchanges. Obviously, they're not T1 exchanges, but they are some pretty big exchanges, like XT Exchange, for an example, that has over 500 and almost 70,000 followers, and they recently just listed XDC. And this is very good because we're now starting to see the markets really catching up and starting to list XDC. We have over 4 pages of, exchanges that have XDC listed pairs. And there's actually a total of 69 pairs for XDC right now to actually trade and buy XDC, which is very good to see. Now, on top of that, let's actually jump into price action because most altcoins are in this position where they're hitting macro lows. For an example, this is what I foresee happening on XDC. We're just chopping here and we're waiting for a floor to form. So just to give you guys a quick insight, right? When we have something like this in terms of a pattern, right, that we're kind of going off of, usually what will end up happening is we'll start to have this significant downtrend where we're just retesting the upper trend line, bouncing off of the bottom one. And then what ends up happening is we start to kind of go sideways, right? When we start to go sideways, that's when you actually really want to focus on the project. Why? Because most of the time, and it's not all the time, it's not a guarantee, but most of the time we do start to see an uptrend form and a big breakout, which is exactly what I'm actually expecting for XDC. I do think that most of the negative noise around crypto and around the world is going to soon really kind of pass us by. And then at that time, we're going to be left with a lot of great overall price action in this market. The reason why I say that is because liquidity will also improve regardless of what happens over, seas. But also most of these altcoins are retesting macro demand zones. For an example, XDC right now is currently retesting a lot of the major wicks back here from March of 2024, December of 2023, August of 2023 as well. And this is all a major demand zone and also a lot of liquidity that XDC is actually retargeting. And this is where I do think that we could start to see a floor form. Now, I wouldn't write off the idea of XDC dipping down and actually touching around the 5-cent region. I will actually be happy with that. And that's also kind of going off of, a possible trend down here that we could, hold. So the key level here is around like 5 and like a quarter cent, which is exactly what I'm really kind of looking at here. So I'm going to be watching over the next couple of days what happens with the overall market, how stocks open today, because again, I'm recording this a little bit ahead of time, but it's more so not short-term price action. It's more so what's this market going to look like, a year from now, for example, or, if we're not really looking at a whole year from now, what about just 1 month, right? Because I've talked about it. In 1 month from now, everything is going to look different in crypto. And I do think that price action will be a lot more bullish. From a year from now, the market, we could have already have seen alt season. We don't know. But the main thing that I'm looking at here is this is short-term pain we will start to see a major upswing in the market across the board for altcoins, especially considering the fact that I do think that alt season is going to be happening, especially considering the fact that when we think about Bitcoin at dominance, Bitcoin dominance has been sitting around like 65, 66% now for a little bit of time, right? We recently just passed over 65%. So we're still very well in a Bitcoin season. We have been for a while now, and we're just waiting for altcoins to really take that big leap. And I do think that that happens very, very soon. Now, let's also talk about a few things happening around XDC. Number one, the Accelerator Programs. We are starting to see a lot more Accelerator Programs launching around XDC. This one is actually with the Builders Oasis Accelerator Program by RackDAO, which officially just launched. We're thrilled to welcome Future Vectors and Artha Labs as the finalized cohort building transformative Web3 solutions on the XDC network. So these are 3 possible new projects that will launch on the XDC network that are building out some great solutions. So very excited about this. And of course, this is around the UAE region, which also just recently passed a lot of big, it's overall opening up the market for crypto. It's regulatory bills, not exactly bills the way that we have them in the US, but they are starting to see the crypto market really open up in the UAE, and XDC is definitely there making its name known. And with these accelerator programs, I do think that the growth around the network and the ecosystem will be very exciting to watch. On top of that, Silicon Valley June Summit is here. XDC takes the main stage today to close out the first cohort of the XDC RWA Accelerator, 10 startups, 3 months of building, and a vision for tokenization on XDC. The reason why I wanted to bring this one up, right, is because this is, again, another big accelerator around XDC. So this one recently just kicked off on the 12th. This is more of a recent summit, but we already have that XDC RWA Accelerator Program live on XDC. There's 10 startups tied to this. I'm very excited to see what happens going forward with the tokenization side of XDC. We already know about the $500 million deal. I'm very excited to still see that hit XDC, but I'm also excited for other startups and other use cases to actually launch tokenization use cases on XDC around possibly tokenized stocks. It could even be commodities as well. I know that we have Comtech Gold, which is a big one, but I'm just excited to see more and more of these tokenization initiatives really kind of launching on these networks, because we already know how big tokenization is going to be. And also on top of that, DeFi. So recently we did get a big announcement, and this was on the 18th. This was actually with XDC is now live on Stargate. So Stargate Finance is actually a pretty large platform. 317,000 plus followers. And if we actually look at the protocol itself, it has over $346 million tied to it. At one point in time recently, back on March 27th, there was over almost $1.7 billion tied to this protocol. We could see the transactions in the weekly and on the monthly time frame. Transactions still significant, over 645,000 so far in the month of June, and volume in the last 24 hours, 58.5 million. If we look at the monthly, it's over 2.2, almost $2.3 billion. So this is a big platform, and now we're seeing XDC add it to this platform. This is very exciting. We have XDC from XDC Network can now be moved on Stargate between Ethereum, Solana, Base, Arbitrum, and XDC with 0 fees, gas only, and 0 slippage, the Stargate standard. So love to see it. Again, this kind of mixes in with the whole idea of XT Exchange listing XDC, and the market's really kind of waking up for XDC. I think that, we need to pay attention to this because it is making XDC more liquid. It's opening up doors of opportunity for XDC to be integrated into DeFi protocols and, other use cases around DeFi. So very exciting. And on top of that, it really does remind me back to the whole Curve Finance announcement with XDC coming to Curve. This is also a giant DeFi protocol, and of course, XDC was recently added to it. And remember, with Curve, right around the same follower count to Stargate, over 377,000 plus followers, and they continue to make a lot of noise even today. Curve is one of the biggest players in this market, and I'm definitely very excited about the DeFi market potentially opening up in a big way for XDC and having those connections back to XDC as well. Now, next up, we also have another big event. This one was actually at the Philippine Blockchain Week. This was a presentation on XDC Payments, highlighting how the platform is transforming the future of cross-border payments, not only in the Philippines, but across the global financial ecosystem. And if we actually look into this, we have over here FundFlow Web3. And if I zoom in, you can see that this has everything to do with stablecoins. And in fact, stablecoins are a part of this entire flow from start to finish. And we already know that XDC is kind of going all in on the stablecoin initiative, which makes a lot of sense at a time where we are starting to see stablecoin legislation really become a hot topic. So very exciting to see this happen on XDC as well, in terms of these big events that are showcasing how payments can be done on XDC. And this one is, of course, around XDC Payments. I talked recently about XDC Cash, which is definitely a big one, but also we have an article that said talk of de-dollarization misses the bigger point. Dollar-backed stablecoins are now the new 21st century financial power tool. It's actually coming from XinFin USA, and we have over here, Genius Act could strengthen dollar power, right rulebook for global financial system. After clearing a key procedural vote, the Genius Act faces a final decision in the Senate before moving to the House of Representatives. The Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins Act, known as Genius Act, now faces a key vote in the United States Congress, and the stakes for the cryptocurrency industry are high. Now, of course, we have been focused on this. We have been really kind of watching what happens with this. And down here, we actually have a focus put on the bridge between TradFi and the blockchain. So the Genius Act would establish an oversight system for stablecoins, allowing issuers to register with the U.S. government. In addition, issuers would be required to have one-to-one backing for their stablecoins, face regular audits, and submit to anti-money laundering regulations. This is a strong signal that the U.S. government is taking a pragmatic approach to digital asset innovation. The act creates a vital bridge for traditional finance to explore blockchain-powered payments and settlement. And this is where we actually start to look at these major utility-based networks. And that's why when we really think about what XDC has been doing, XDC is starting to kind of shine a bit here. And we also have down here that talk of de-dollarization misses the bigger point. Dollar-backed stablecoins are now the new 21st century financial power tool. This is actually coming from Bill Siebel, the executive director of XDC Foundation. If the Genius Act were to pass now, anyone with a smartphone can hold a compliant digital dollar, increasing reach and relevance for USD at the exact moment critics predict its decline. And yeah, this could definitely be a big game changer. And also what's funny about this is XDC was recently at the Digital Economy Australian meeting. We have here final day of DEC Australia, DEC Conference 2025, hosted a breadth of executive roundtables, engaged forums, and builder workshops. I was privileged and honored to contribute to the Stablecoin Roundtable alongside lawyers, local stable issuers, auditors, policy advisors, and makers, digital bankers, researchers, and TradFi players. What I learned is that Australia wants to stay in touch with global developments, and yet the government might not always have the bandwidth and sufficient acuity to prioritize. Let's see how the new Australian government administration tackles this critical piece in the digital economy. And it's also based around the Australian digital dollar project, which, if you guys don't know, this is launching on Hedera. It's also tied into XDC as well, and it's actually launched on XDC. This was announced on the 6th. The recent Hedera announcement was also announced on June 18th. And I also think that XRP is also tied back to this one. We've actually talked about it a bit, but this is very exciting. We're starting to see more and more stablecoins really kind of coming on chain. And of course, XDC is right at the forefront of it. And with all of these major moves happening, I mean, listen, XDC has been making so much noise this entire year. We're 6 months in. XDC continues to shine. XDC continues to expand its overall market exposure, which is very exciting. And right now, price action in this market on almost every single altcoin is pretty much dead, right? Like most altcoins look as if they're dead. And we've had this price action in the past, right? Like for an example, if you were back here all the way into 2024 from 2023, you would think that this entire time XDC was dead. Then what we saw was XDC just continue to boom, shoot up to the sky, going from, like 2 cents all the way up here to about like 16 cents almost. So when we really think about this market right now, everyone is panicky. Everyone's kind of losing hope on any of these projects resulting in any value or ROI. But that's exactly when you really want to pay attention to this space. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.